Right, in this video, we're going to explore a schema that's often at the core of people feeling lonely. The big stories that are connected to this schema have us thinking that we basically don't fit in and we don't belong, which often drives us into coping mechanisms like experiential avoidance, anger, and many of those addictive, compulsive, and obsessive behaviors that we're currently trying to change. So today, let's talk about the schema of social isolation. When the schema of social isolation is activated in our system, we're left with this general belief that we're completely disconnected from other people, and this can sometimes even feel like we don't have a safe place to settle anywhere at all in the world. It's extremely common for this schema to show up as feeling like we're different in some way, like we're not a part of the group or the community that we're trying to connect with, or we generally feel like we don't belong in the conversation. The creation of this schema can be due to a number of different reasons. For example, growing up we might have felt different to other children, either at school or within our own family of origin. It might also be the case that our family itself was different to other people in our neighbourhood in some way, and we felt judged and left out because of this. In some cases, this schema exists because of our own genetic passive nature and temperament in childhood, which basically means as children we were constantly doing what other people wanted us to do, and we never really developed any significant interests of our own. These behaviour patterns can leave us feeling like we've got nothing to offer in terms of conversation, so that means we're definitely socially isolated from the people around us, even though in actuality we're not physically alone. This particular schema is strongly linked to a number of different unmet childhood needs that usually revolve around attachment to others. When we have a general sense that we don't fit in, like we don't belong, or that we're different in some way, it creates patterns as adults that keep us staying on the outskirts of social gatherings. We never feel comfortable to be ourselves, and we sometimes don't even engage at all as a way to keep us safe from the possibility of judgment from others. When we do get involved in the conversation, even just listening in to others speak, we often hear the differences in what they're saying, never making the connection to ourselves or hearing the similarities in any of their stories. This just confirms our own particular point of view that are connected to this schema and keeps us trapped in the rigidity of belief that we just simply don't fit in. Social isolation is a schema that a lot of people identify with when they live inside of an addictive lifestyle. This story can show up in a lot of different ways too, and for a variety of different reasons. For most of us, it usually leads to some form of avoidant behaviour, as social interaction becomes a representation of a space that's simply just not a safe place for us to be. Whatever our own particular story might be, underneath the schema of social isolation lies a general sense of loneliness that's extremely difficult for us to deal with, and it's often the root cause of those addictive, obsessive, or compulsive coping mechanisms that we're desperately trying to work on right now. For me, the schema of social isolation would show up all over the place. Growing up, when I was going to hang out in any kind of social situation, at my core, I was a bit of a science fiction nerd, feeling like I was clinging on to the tailcoats of all the cool kids. This actually just confirmed my subconscious point of view that I was different and couldn't be myself in any way because I'd probably be judged and discarded from the tribe. In my teens and early adult life, I discovered that alcohol was the solution to this problem, which obviously started me down the slippery slope of addictive, obsessive, and compulsive behaviors that would take me a couple of decades to get out of. The irony of this type of coping mechanism was that the solution to the problem, in this case the alcohol, actually solidified my sense of loneliness, which was the very thing I was using it for in the first place. Loneliness itself is caused by a lack of connection to others. Making a connection with another human being requires a certain level of vulnerability, a willingness to step into the possibility of rejection. If social isolation is a dominant schema, this is an incredibly difficult thing for us to do because of the narrative that opening up means we have to be vulnerable, which triggers parts of our personality that genuinely believe that if we do this, people are going to see all those things that make us different. This particular belief is set into a rigidity that is 100% sure that vulnerability is a weakness that will only lead to rejection, which is the thing we fear the most because it activates all of the emotional pain that's associated with our loneliness, namely the sadness, the guilt and the shame that we're desperately trying to avoid. Many of us have a negative point of view when it comes to who we are in the perception of other people. This stems from a lack of acceptance for self. Learning how to accept each and every part of our personality as a necessary and important part of who we are is absolutely key. Practicing the skills of unconditional self-acceptance using the emotion regulation tools that we learn in dialectical behaviour therapy can help to debunk the social isolation schema, which allows our defensive parts to step back from their fear-based responses. When I explored my own beliefs associated with this schema, I found that I was usually projecting the point of view that was coming from my own internal critics onto my beliefs about what other people were thinking about me, basically theorizing that they saw in me exactly what I saw in myself. However, when I looked at the evidence that I was basing this on, I was able to see the psychological filters I had in place that were keeping me stuck in the coping mechanisms that I was desperately trying to change. At the bottom of the website page that's connected to this particular video, you're going to find a worksheet that's designed to help you figure out if the schema of social isolation is one that's dominant for you. If you can, download the PDF and work through the questions. Take your time to think things through. Keep in mind, we can find a little of every schema within our personal stories. What we're actually trying to find are the dominant ones that take us into that emotional place that we're trying to escape from. If you've got an opinion on this or anything else to do with the integration of DBT and schema therapy, please leave a comment in the chat. I'd really like to hear your point of view. If you want to know more, come join the live online meetings that I facilitate each week on Zoom. I'll leave some links to those groups in the description below. And as always, if you like the content of this video, please subscribe to the channel, smash that like button and turn on those notifications to get all the latest from me and the Liberation Place. I hope this video gave you some ideas on how the schema of social isolation might be relevant for you and your own personality system. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Take care, be safe and be well.